the morning show right here on the Rise News channel. Edo State is yet to experience the pervasive destruction of natural ecosystem, I should say, which has been a major fallout of oil exploration in the rest of the Niger Delta region for the past 30 years. But with exploration of hydrocarbon deposits and the big oil companies moving farther afield, the situation might change at some point and over time. However, the state has for decades relied on a carefully laid out template for agricultural development for its economic sustenance. A former military governor of the defunct Bendel State, late Brigadier Samuel Gwimudia, is still being credited with the achievement, which not only brought radical but more profitable changes to farming operations, but yielded enormous revenue to the state as well, while creating employment opportunities for the people. As politicians in the state continue to seek votes ahead of the September 19 elections, it bears asking, how well are we talking about the resuscitation of agriculture in Edo State? What plans do they have for exploiting the massive agricultural potential of the state? So joining us now from Benin City, Edo State, attending to this question a lot more, is Joe Okojie, Special Advisor to the Edo State Governor on Agriculture. We'll be talking on this program about loans to farmers and the state agriculture policy of the Obaseki administration, an issue which the All Progressive Congress has been criticizing the government for allegedly failing to make loans available and accessible to farmers. Welcome to the program. And I'd like to talk to you about this because I have a bias. You know, apart from being a journalist, I studied animal physiology and anatomy, so I'm in the agriculture field. And Edo State has been known for a lot. In fact, one of the first quoted agricultural companies in the country was out of Edo State. You know, palm oil production. I know you have very good Tenera, Dura, and Piscifera breeds of oil palm and the likes, and NIFO and things like that, and other research institutes. But despite that, if I'm to check line items of IGR in Edo State, we don't see agriculture featuring very prominently the way it should.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thanks for having me.
Yes.
Well, I would say you are right in some sense, in the sense that since we discovered oil, a majority of our farmers have abandoned their farmlands and have taken to seek greener pasture in the gas and oil and gas field. However, since the current governor, Governor Obaseki, came to power, he, in 2016, he opined that the best and fastest way to create wealth among our teeming youths and women, and also to create employment, would be agriculture. It's amazing that you would mention the oil palm sector. Last year, we launched our program, the ESOP, Edo State Oil Palm Program. And in attendance was the CBN governor, who committed to financing our first phase to up to 68.9 billion. In that first phase, we're going to be putting 51.5 thousand hectares under cultivation, and the total investment required will be 91.3 billion. And the CBN governor was so impressed with the program, and he committed to financing up to 75% of the total investment required. Paraventure, the would-be investors will be able to provide and show proof of funds that they have up to 25% of the investment required. So that's an ongoing program, and that's going on right now. But just to let you know that in the next 5 years in Edo State, we are trying to put 250,000 hectares under production in our oil palm sector. That is just one aspect of our agripreneur program. In Edo State, we have two primary programs. One is the agripreneur and one is the IFI, which is the Independent Farmers Initiative. So currently, those programs are ongoing, and as we go along in the program, you ask me more questions, I'll be more than happy to answer whatever questions that you have.
Well, you mentioned the ESOP program, that's the Edo State Oil Palm Program. Are you aware of the concerns and allegations raised by some farmers under the aegis of Concerned Farmers Association of Edo State, who say that the program has been hijacked and that the 69 billion naira provided by the CBN for loans, is not reaching the farmers, the local farmers in the state? What do you have to say to these and other allegations surrounding the loan programs, including the agripreneur program you mentioned?
Well, for me, that's laughable in the sense that the 68.9 billion does not come to the state or into the state coffers. The 68.9 billion will go to the would-be investors that are going to invest in that program. It's strictly a transaction between the would-be investor and the CBN. So for someone to sit somewhere and allege that it's been hijacked, that's laughable. And for me, that's just politics, bad politics. Because how can you hijack or embezzle something that is not in your coffers? So the CBN that they wrote a petition to that I'm aware of, they are aware of the fact that these funds are not in the coffers of the state government. So how do you embezzle what you don't have or hijack what you don't have? The loan application is between the would-be investor and the CBN. And the CBN will underwrite the loan and fund the would-be investors directly and not through the states. So I don't know how it's possible for the state government or any other person to embezzle such funds that is not in their coffers.
Well, but there's still a point with regard to these agric loans that I would like you to clarify for our viewers. There is a group called the Save Edo Movement, one of the groups that brought up this issue about agric loans. And it's good that you have talked about how, people can access the loan. But I've seen that agriculture has become a big campaign issue as Edo State prepares for the election on September 19. And in the introduction, I pointed out that we now understand that the Edo State government, the Obaseki government, will ensure that the loans will get across to either the agripreneurs or those you call the investors. So are we now talking about those agric programs, agripreneur, encouraging investors, and post-COVID-19 agric programs by the Obaseki administration as election talk, because it's election time? And if it's not election talk, what steps, what plans do you have to ensure that between now and election day or after, these agric investors are assisted by the state government to get the loans, quickly, wherever the funds may be domiciled?
Well, let me help you out. I mentioned that under our agriculture program, we have two programs. One is called the Agripreneur Program, and one is called the Independent Farmers Initiative. Maybe I should just explain to you how this program works. Under the Agripreneur Program, when the governor came on board, being a visionary leader, he decided that our farmers should no longer farm with hoes and machetes. And the first thing he did was to identify government land in Sobe, Ekpoma, and Agane-Bude. And he cleared such land. The lands in Sobe, Ekpoma, and Agane-Bude were lands that the government cleared back in the 50s under the Western region when Awolowo was the premier. Cleared those lands and aggregated farmers. And each farmer was given 5 hectares. The first thing he did was to do a pilot. He did a pilot in Sobe, did a pilot in Ekpoma, did a pilot in Irua, did a pilot in Ilushi for rice, did a pilot in Aganebode for rice, and did a pilot in Warake. And in Sobe, we cultivated using the Fadama Fund, which was a grant. Each farmer got 1 hectare, and they were given 1 hectare in the pilot stage, cultivated 100 hectares of rice, maize. In Ekbuma, 100 hectares of maize. In Sugbenu, 100 hectares of maize. In Ilushi, 100 hectares of rice, Faro 44. In Agadebode, 100 hectares of rice, Faro 44. And in Warake, he cultivated 100 hectares of, 40 hectares of rice, because that was not by the river bank. We were not sure if it was going to do as well as Aganebode and Ilushi that were directly by the river bank. Then in Igborahi and Igbomo, he did 200 hectares of rice, because that's directly off the Ovia River bank. So in these 7 or 8 communities, we piloted in 2018. And after that, in 2019, we scaled up. We scaled up in Sobe. We did 745 hectares of maize and aggregated farmers and gave them 5 hectares. Not only did we give them 5 hectares, we also gave them access to funds, because at that point, the governor secured a 5 billion naira loan from the CBN under the Commercial Agri Credit Scheme. Out of that, economics of productions were developed, and each farmer had a copy, and production started. 745 hectares of maize in Sobe, 180 hectares of maize in Usugbenu, 100 hectares of rice in
Okay, if I can come in here, sir. If I can come in here, sir.
Yeah.
I want to deal with the critical points, not the things that have been done. I asked a question earlier on, that why is this not a line item in your IGR? 100 hectares of rice in Aganebode, 100 hectares of maize here, 100 hectares of maize there. I want to be seeing that 100 hectares of maize convert to 500 million naira after sale in IGR for Edo State, 300 million naira after sale in this. That's what I want to talk about. How can we make that the case?
The state, these fields that are being developed are not owned by the state. They are owned by individuals. They are given to individuals. All the state is simply doing is de-risking the major risk factors, like land clearing and aggregating farmers to farm these lands. Items are sold. It is the state also give them access to market by helping them sign a tripartite agreement between the state, the would-be off-taker, and the farmer. So when these funds, when these produce are sold, they are paid into the farmer's account. And the profit is released to the farmers, and the capital and the interest is returned back to the tax account. So it's not, the state is not in need to make profit. It is up to the taxing agency to go after the individual farmers to collect their tax revenues.
So how has that been done? Can I ask you, how has that been done in such a way that all this money is invested in that? Because you see, when we run government, we should always think about cost-benefit ratio. How has that increased the number of taxable people in Edo State? How can you trace the money that the 5 billion given, the people that farmed the land, they made XYZ profit, and they returned it in taxes to the state? How has that been done?
Well, I don't work for the Edo State Internal Revenue Service, and it is their duty to go after anybody that is making making income from the state. You know, for me, we are on the production side and ensuring that the farmers are empowered and that we are helping generate employment and creating wealth. So it's up to the taxing agent to go after all of those individuals in the states that have generated income one way or the other to make sure that they pay taxes as at when due. So if I was working in that agency, I would be able to answer your question in specific terms.
Joe Okojie, well, you've not addressed the point
Yes,
I
sir.
raised about how this is all about the election of September 19. You recall that even the APC candidate, Ize Yamo, in his simple agenda, under employment creation, agriculture is a major issue. And during the campaigns, he's also been criticizing these two major programs that you talk about. I don't know whether you are aware of the criticism by the APC of Governor Obaseki's agric programs. What do you have to say to some of the things they've said, particularly with regard to the fact that the farmers are not really pleased with the program? But here you are, you've talked about hectares here and there. And okay, let's forget about IGR, since you say you don't work with internal revenue. How many jobs will you say, the governor has also been able to create through those two major programs that you were talking about? Because as special advisor, you should have that figure.
I can tell you that the government have created over 9,000 direct jobs, not to talk of the indirect jobs of the people working these fields. The last time we checked, direct jobs and farmers that have benefited from this program were in excess of over 9,000 people. So for somebody to sit somewhere to say the program has not met its objective, the person is being mischievous. The farm feeds are in Edo State. They are not in Lagos State or anywhere else. Anybody that is interested can drive to the farm feeds and they will see them and they will see the people that are working in the farm feeds. So I told you earlier that whatever it is that they are saying is nothing but politics. How come they didn't raise these questions earlier? Why are they waiting till now to raise all these questions? They have been in this state for the last 3 years when we have been cultivating and developing our farm feeds. Why didn't they raise the alarm and say, oh, the government is not doing what they ought to be doing? Why are they waiting till now? Why are they waiting till now to bring up the issues? In the allegation that you raised earlier, in their own world and what they want us to believe, they want us to believe that the government have taken the 68.9 billion and it's in the government coffers. What they don't understand about this program is that the CBN is involved. Unless the CBN wants to defraud themselves, because there's nothing that you do that the CBN is not involved. Even when you are having your PMT meetings, the CBN is there. When you are reviewing your EOP, your economic of production for the would-be farmers, the CBN is there. And the CBN will not approve an EOP if it's out of if it doesn't meet the criteria that they set. And the banks will not disburse to the farmers if they are not satisfied with what the funds is going to be used for. So I don't want to get involved in that whole political propaganda. If you want me to tell you about what we have done, I will gladly do that.
Okay.
But you have not responded truly what the impact of this agricultural programs by your administration has been. You're not able to give the figures of those who have been impacted in terms of employment. But let me also ask you, recent statistics shows that Edo State has 19% unemployment rate. What are the plans to engage some of those numbers in agriculture going forward?
Well, madam, I am not sure what you meant by I have not given you the statistics that you required. I told you that the last time we checked, over 9,000 persons have benefited directly from the loan program in terms of agriculture. And I told you that I wasn't going to go into the other persons that benefited indirectly. However, as we speak, we aggregate farmers that are truly interested in farming, and not political farmers that just think this is just another government largesse. What we seek to do is go into the rural areas, and we aggregate farmers in the rural areas, and we get them to donate land to the state government with the major risk factor, which is clearing of the land, because we are in the rainforest, clearing of the land. The state clears the land for them and provide them whatever they need to have a successful production from crane to cradle, from mechanization to harvesting, even up to giving them access to the market. So our hope is that you can agree with me that when you start a program, you have to go through a teaching process, which we have gone through, and we are turning the corners, and our farmers are beginning to see better yield, and they are beginning to see more income after the sale of their produce. So we are still aggregating farmers and trying to see if we can get more of our youths and more of our women to be involved, those that have not been involved in the past, and I think we are making progress.
I'm sorry, I'm still very particular, and like I did so share the sentiment and Dr. Abati, I'm not still satisfied. You know, I don't know, maybe you've not given me what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is this: 5 billion spent.
I don't know what you're looking for.
Just a minute.
If you tell me what you're looking for,
I'll tell you what I'm looking for. Let me get there. 5 billion spent, 65 billion spent, all this great money spent. But I'm looking for, we spend this amount, when the farmers sold their produce, this was what they made. This was the profits, all right? So you said directly now, over 9,000 people. That means if these 9,000 people are of taxable age, they should be able to directly just go straight, you know, to the tax ladder if they can make profits, or if the profit is not enough. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for numbers. I'm looking for, we spend, let me give you an instance of what I'm looking for. The government of Norway knows that from Okporoko, for instance, from Nigeria, the fish, stockfish, they make over $50 million yearly. And when we said we wanted to ban stockfish, the government of Norway was quick to come to this country and say, please don't try it. It's a $50 million industry. I want that kind of number.
Okay. Let me help you out. Maybe you are not listening to me. 68.9 billion has not been spent. I don't know where you got the figure from that it was spent. I told you I never told you that we spent 68.9 billion. That is what the CBN committed to. That's 75% of the 91.3 billion that will be required for us to cultivate the oil palm fields in Oriomo area, in the Gobazua. And I told you earlier that the would-be investors will go through a loan process with the CBN, and the CBN will fund them directly, and that they have to show that they have 25% of the investment required. So don't misunderstand me by saying 69 billion spent, because 69 billion has not been spent. However, I also told you that we took a loan of 5 billion that we are using to fund our agripreneur program. And I also told you that in our first year of production, we did pilots. using Fadama grants. In that production, whatever the farmers cultivate and sell, it goes to them. They get to keep it because it's a grant from the World Bank. Then last year was our first year of production under the agripreneur, where we aggregated about 6,000 farmers that farm rice, cassava. They did a bit of poultry and aquaculture. Then this year we scaled up and we have given loans to about 9,000 farmers. And the balance in the account, if you still wish to know, of the 5 billion is still in excess of 3 billion. So we have not spent 5 billion like you posited.
You're not still giving
cassava,
but we need to start wrapping things up.
Sir, hold on. Cassava has a 12 to 15 month gestation period. So those that planted last year have not harvested. The only people that have harvested are the people that planted maize and rice. And the total investment in that was, it was about 300 and something million. And I believe we got back about 421 million. And the rest, the profit was distributed to the farmers.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Joe Okojie. I hope that there is also a mechanism in place to ensure sustainability in the event that the election on September 19 goes the other way. You know that the other party doesn't seem to be excited about your program. But thank you very much for joining us.